The last box was the one I should have packed first. It held the things I used every day. My coffee mug, phone charger, 2 towels, the folder with my insurance papers, and the small desk lamp I had owned since college. I had left it open on the bedroom floor until the room was almost empty, then folded the cardboard flaps over one another without tape. By the time I carried it outside, the August heat had settled between the houses like something solid. The bottom of the box pressed into my forearms. My car was parked at the curb because Mark's truck and Sophie's old bicycle were still in the driveway. Mark did not come outside. We had already said what passed for goodbye in our family. "You got everything?" he had asked from the kitchen. "I think so. Leave the spare key on the counter." That was it. I put the box in the back seat beside a rolled-up mattress pad and a grocery bag full of cleaning supplies. When I straightened, my phone lit up on the roof of the car. At first, I noticed only the number of notifications. Mark had tagged me, our mother, Aunt Carol, 2 cousins, and several other relatives in a Facebook post. He had used a photograph of the empty bedroom. The mattress was gone, the closet door stood open, and the pale rectangle where my dresser had blocked the sunlight made the wall look unfinished. The caption said, "The Parasite is gone." "House finally feels like ours again." There was a laughing emoji after it. For a few seconds, I assumed I had misread the word. My eyes went back to the beginning and followed the sentence more carefully. "The Parasite is gone." Mark had posted it 12 minutes earlier. Our cousin Ben had already reacted with a laughing face.
Aunt Carol had written freedom. Someone else asked whether Mark had changed the locks. My mother's comment appeared while I was still looking. "Be nice. She's still your sister."
It was the kind of defense that made the accusation sound true. I opened the comments, closed them, then opened them again. I could see Mark through the kitchen window. He stood at the sink with his back to me, rinsing something under the faucet. He did not look toward the street. I did not call him. Instead, I opened my banking app. That response probably says more about me than anything I could explain. When something goes wrong, I check what is due. I look at the calendar, the balance, the part of the problem that has numbers attached to it. Feelings are harder to organize. Under scheduled payments, there it was, Linden Grove Property Management, $1,860, scheduled for August 30, 12 a.m. Mark's rent. The payment was for September. I was moving out on August 30. A red link beneath the amount still said cancel payment. I pressed it once, not hard enough to activate it, and read the notice that appeared. The payment could be canceled until 11:59 p.m. Eastern Time. After processing began, cancellation was not guaranteed. I had set up the payment 3 weeks earlier, when Mark and I were still speaking carefully around the fact that I was leaving. His overtime at the distribution center had not returned. Sophie had just started her sophomore year at the high school 3 blocks away. He had asked me to cover 1 final month so he would have time to adjust without telling her how close things were. Just through September, he had said. After that, I'll figure it out. I had agreed. At the time, the promise had felt separate from everything else. Separate from the bedroom, separate from the arguments about dishes and noise, separate from the way Mark had spent months reducing whatever I paid to, helping out whenever the subject came close to money. I had noticed the wording. I had not treated it as a warning. Separate, somehow, from whatever he had just posted. My new apartment was 20 minutes away. I still needed to pick up the keys before the leasing office closed, and the box in my back seat was beginning to lean against the car door. I looked at the payment again. Then I looked through the windshield at the kitchen window. Mark had moved away from the sink. The room was empty now. I told myself he might delete the post before I reached the apartment. Maybe he had been angry. Maybe someone had made a joke and he had gone too far with it. Maybe he had expected only a few relatives to see it and had not thought about the tag. I did not believe any one of those explanations completely. I wanted one of them to be true badly enough that I left the payment where it was. The apartment smelled like fresh paint and somebody else's carpet cleaner. I had 1 lamp, 1 folding chair, and no table. I put my phone on the kitchen counter because it was the only flat surface that was not the floor. By 7:30, Mark's post had more than 40 comments. I did not read all of them. I read enough. Aunt Carol wrote that Mark had done his duty. One of our second cousins said he hoped Mark could finally start saving money again. Ben posted a gif of a man carrying bags out of a house.
My mother sent me a private message. I know moving is emotional, but don't start a fight tonight. Your brother gave you a place when you needed one. I typed, that isn't what happened.
Then I erased it. She called 10 minutes later. Are you settled? She asked. I have keys. That's something. I could hear the television behind her. My mother always kept it on, even when she was reading. She waited, and I knew what she expected me to say. Did you see Mark's post? I asked. He shouldn't have used that word. That word? You know what I mean. He tagged everyone. He's relieved. You two have been crowded in that house for almost a year. That doesn't make me a parasite, no. But you have to admit he helped you. I looked at the folding chair. One of the plastic feet was missing, so it tilted slightly toward the wall. What did he tell you? I asked. About what? About me living there. My mother sighed. I am not getting in the middle of this tonight. That was usually how she announced that she was already in the middle, but preferred the version she had heard first. Okay, I said. Please don't embarrass him online. I almost laughed. It came out as a breath through my nose. She did not seem to notice. After we hung up, I checked the scheduled payment. The cancel link was still there. At 8:15, Mark texted, "You get into the apartment, okay?" I stared at the message long enough for the screen to dim. Yes. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, then appeared again. Rent is still set for tonight, right? No mention of the post. I walked into the bedroom, though there was nothing in it except my suitcase and the mattress pad spread directly on the carpet. The blinds were open. Across the parking lot, a man in a blue shirt was carrying takeout containers from his car to another building. I wrote, "You called me a parasite," in front of the whole family.
Mark answered almost immediately. It was a joke. Nobody is reading it as a joke. They know how you are. I read that sentence several times. How am I? He did not answer.
At 9:40, he sent another message. Don't drag Sophie into this. I had not mentioned Sophie. I sat on the floor with my back against the wall. The apartment's air conditioner turned on with a hard metallic sound. I remember that sound more clearly than I remember what I was thinking. The unit rattled for about 10 seconds before settling into a steady hum. At 10:30, I opened the cancellation screen and entered my passcode. The app asked me to confirm. I closed it. At 11:12, Aunt Carol sent a message saying she hoped I would use this new beginning to become more independent. I started a reply. I deleted that too. At 11:47, I opened the banking app again. The scheduled payment sat at the top of the screen. If I canceled it, Mark might not have the full rent by the first. I did not know exactly how much money he had. I knew only what he had told me. I knew his overtime had been cut. His truck needed tires and Sophie had started school. I also knew he had asked me not to tell anyone. The agreement had begun 8 months earlier in his kitchen after Sophie went upstairs. Mark had stood with both hands on the back of a chair and said, "Mom can't know. She'll panic, and then she'll tell everybody." I had promised. Promises are simple when the person you make them to is still behaving like the person you thought you knew. At 11:58, Mark texted again. "Please tell me you didn't cancel it." I held the phone in both hands. I could have pressed the red link. I had enough time. Instead, I typed, "The payment is still scheduled." He responded with a thumbs up. At 11:59, I refreshed the screen. The cancel link remained visible. Then the time changed, 12 a.m. For several seconds, nothing happened. I wondered whether the app's clock and my phone's clock matched. I pressed refresh again. The status changed from scheduled to processing. The red link disappeared. I placed the phone face down on the carpet. There was no relief in the decision. There was not even the satisfaction of having kept my word. There was only the air conditioner, the empty room, and the knowledge Mark had received the answer he wanted, without having to remove a single word. I woke before 6 because the mattress pad had slid during the night, and half my body was on the carpet. For a moment, I did not know where I was. Then I saw the moving boxes against the wall and remembered. The first thing I did was check the payment. It still said processing. The second thing I did was check Facebook. Mark's post was still there. He had responded to one comment with, "You have no idea." That was all.
I made coffee using a saucepan because the coffee maker was in a box I had labeled kitchen later.
I found it eventually, beneath a stack of dish towels and a colander. The process took 10 minutes and made me angrier than it should have. At 8:30, an email arrived from the electric company. My service request had been approved, but because I had no previous account with them, they required a $325 deposit. I had known there might be a deposit. I had also planned to pay it from the money left after moving expenses. That money had included the $1,860 scheduled for Mark's house only in the sense that I had hoped, until the last hour, that I would not have to spend it. I paid the deposit with a credit card. The confirmation email contained 3 lines and a reference number. I read it twice before filing it in a folder on my phone. Work habits follow me into places they do not belong. I supervised accounts receivable for a regional plumbing supply company, and I had spent 9 years matching payments to invoices other people claimed they had never received. At 34, I knew how to document a transaction. I had less practice deciding when documentation became a weapon. Mark sent a message shortly after 9. Saw it went through.
Thanks, I waited. No second message came. I typed, "Are you taking down the post?" He did not answer for almost an hour. It's already yesterday's news. Let it die.
I looked at the phrase, "let it die," while new reactions continued appearing beneath the post. But before I could decide whether to respond, Sophie texted, "Did you find your charger?" I had loaned her my long phone cable the week before because hers had split near the plug. It was in the last box, I wrote. Okay, good. Then, after a pause, "I hope you're not mad at Dad." I sat down on the folding chair and felt it tilt beneath me. "Why would you think that?" He said moving day got tense. That was not an answer, exactly. I asked whether she was doing okay at school. She told me chemistry was already terrible and that her history teacher assigned too much reading. We stayed with those subjects for a while. I did not tell her that the rent payment was processing. I did not tell her what her father had posted, though I assumed she had seen it or would soon. I did not ask what he had told her about me. She ended with, "I'll give you space." That hurt more than the Facebook comments. The following Monday, the payment changed from processing to posted. The amount was no longer something I could imagine stopping. It had moved through the bank and into the property management account exactly as I had arranged. That afternoon, the repair shop called about my car. The front brakes could wait a few weeks, the mechanic said, but not a few months. The estimate was $740. Go ahead and do the oil change, I told him. I'll schedule the brakes later. He asked whether I was sure. I said yes too quickly. For the first week in the apartment, I slept on the floor, used the folding chair as both a seat and a nightstand, and charged my phone from an outlet beside the refrigerator because I had not yet bought an extension cord. None of those things ruined my life. They were ordinary inconveniences, but each one carried the shape of the payment I had allowed to leave. Meanwhile, the story Mark had posted began settling into the family as if it had always been there. Aunt Carol called Sunday afternoon while I was assembling a bookshelf. The instructions were spread across the floor, and I had attached one of the side panels backward. I did not realize it until she said, "I'm proud of you for getting your own place." And I looked down at the row of unfinished screw holes facing the wrong direction. "Thank you," I said. "I know this year has been hard. What do you mean?" There was a pause long enough for me to hear her porch swing creak. "Well, the job situation. Staying with Mark. All of it. My job situation? When your hours were cut. My hours were never cut. Oh, I set the screwdriver down." "What did Mark tell you?" "He didn't make some formal announcement, if that's what you mean." "What did he say?" "He said you were between things and needed somewhere inexpensive." I closed my eyes. I was working the same job the whole time. Aunt Carol became cautious. Then maybe I misunderstood. "Did he tell you I wasn't paying rent?" "He said you helped where you could." The bookshelf panel lay between my feet. I had been trying to solve the wrong problem. Later that day, Ben sent me a message. "Hey, no hard feelings about my comment. Mark made it sound like family humor." I asked what Mark had told him. Ben replied, "Just that you were there to save money and didn't really contribute." I figured he was exaggerating. My mother's version was different again. When I called her Monday night, she insisted Mark had never said I paid nothing. He said he carried most of the household costs, she told me. He didn't. You bought groceries sometimes. I paid the rent. The silence on the line lasted so long that I checked whether the call had dropped. All of it? She asked. Yes. For how long? I looked at the ceiling. I could have answered. The bank statements were mine. The transfers were mine. No one had stolen the information from a private file. I had every right to say it, but saying it would also mean explaining why. Long enough, I said. That is not an answer. It's the answer I'm giving you. My mother exhaled. Then I don't know what you expect me to do. I had not asked her to do anything. The arrangement with Mark had started the previous December. His distribution center had reorganized the overnight shift, and the overtime he depended on disappeared. At first, he treated it as temporary. He used a credit card for groceries and delayed replacing the tires on his truck. By January, he was behind. My lease on a small duplex was ending, and the owner planned to renovate before putting it on the market. I had already been searching for a new place when Mark asked whether I would stay with him and Sophie for a while. He presented it as something practical for both of us. You need somewhere for a few months, he said. I have an empty room. You can help with expenses. After Sophie went upstairs, he told me what help meant. He needed the full rent covered. Not forever, he said. Just until his hours came back. He did not want Sophie frightened. He did not want Mom calling every day. He did not want Aunt Carol offering money and then discussing it at Christmas for the next 10 years. I'm not asking for charity, he said. I remember that exact sentence because I almost corrected him. Instead, I said, okay. We agreed I would pay Linden Grove directly from my account. He would cover utilities and groceries when he could. To everyone else, I was temporarily staying with him while I looked for another apartment. I told myself the arrangement protected him. By the time I moved out, the family had been hearing some version of the opposite story for months. I did not know whether Mark had deliberately built it, or whether he had adjusted the details each time someone asked an uncomfortable question. I could not trace every conversation. I had no recordings and no right to pretend I understood what had happened in rooms where I was not present. What I did know was simpler. My silence had made every version possible. The next request came 11 days after I moved out. Mark texted while I was eating yogurt at my desk and reviewing an aging report. Have you thought about October? I knew what he meant. I made him say it anyway. October what? He called instead of answering. I took the phone into the stairwell. Someone had left a flattened shipping box beside the fire door, and I stood with one foot on it while Mark explained that his overtime still had not returned. Agreed. September was the last month, I said. I know what we agreed. Then why are you asking? Because what I expected to happen didn't happen. That doesn't change what I can afford. You have a steady paycheck. I also have rent now. You had rent before, yes. He went quiet. I could hear machinery somewhere behind him. He was probably calling from the distribution center floor, though he had not said where he was. I'm asking for one more month, he said. You already asked for one final month. September was different. School had just started. What changes in October? It gives me more time. For what? To fix it. That was the first answer he gave that did not use Sophie's name. Then he used it. He said moving could affect her bus route. A cheaper rental might put her in another school boundary. Her mother had already moved out of state, and he did not want to make her life less stable. Some of that was true. I did not know how close he was to moving, whether he had spoken to Linden Grove, or whether another bill could be delayed instead. Mark presented every possibility as if it had already become the only outcome. Did you remove the post? I asked. He exhaled. What does Facebook have to do with Sophie having a place to live? It has to do with you asking me for money while telling everyone I depended on you. You lived in my house and paid the rent. You paid toward the household. For the month after I moved out? Someone opened the stairwell door above me. The person stopped when they heard my voice, then went back through the door. Mark lowered his own voice. This is why I didn't want the family involved. You involved them. It was a stupid joke, then delete it. Nobody is looking at it anymore. I am. He did not answer. I waited long enough to hear the machinery behind him stop and start again. I'm not paying October, I said. You don't have to decide while you're angry. I'm not deciding while I'm angry. September was the final payment. Think about what this could mean for Sophie. Then he ended the call.
After work, I stopped at a discount store. I put a floor lamp, a saucepan with a lid, and an extension cord into my cart. At the register, I removed the lamp.
The electric company deposit was still on my credit card beside the moving van charge. The brake repair was still waiting. None of that meant Mark had more money than he claimed. It meant I did not have an extra month of rent to give him without moving my own problems forward. The next morning, he texted again. Any thoughts? I need to know. I answered. September was the final payment. I will not pay October. His response came less than a minute later. You care more about Facebook than your niece. I put the phone in my desk drawer. When I opened the drawer at lunch, there were no new messages. Mark called Saturday evening. I almost let it go to voicemail, but Sophie had not answered my last 2 messages. For half a second, I thought she might be calling from his phone. When I answered, I heard cabinet doors closing. You busy? Mark asked. I'm unpacking. You've been unpacking for 2 weeks. I still have boxes. In the background, Sophie asked whether they had pasta sauce. Mark covered the phone, though not completely. Behind the soup, he told her. There isn't any. There is. Move the cans. I waited while he found it. When he came back, his voice was quieter. I need an answer. I sent you one, so that's it? Yes. You know I can't make October work without moving things around. Then you'll have to move things around. That's easy for you to say. No, it isn't. You have your own apartment and a steady paycheck. I had a steady paycheck before I moved into your house. He did not respond. I sat on the edge of the mattress. I had bought a basic metal frame by then, but the bedroom still echoed. I paid September, I said. That was what I promised. You wanted to help. I did help. Then stop talking like I took something from you. I'm talking about what you said. It was one Facebook post. It was still there this morning. Nobody cares anymore. I care. So what do you want? Some public apology. I want you to stop telling people you supported me. I did support you. You lived here, and I paid the entire rent. You had the bigger bedroom. You used the garage. The house has 3 bedrooms, Mark. I had 6 boxes in the garage. This is what you do, he said. You turn everything into an accounting exercise. You gave me the property management information. You reminded me before every payment. You asked me to cover September after I moved out. Because you agreed to it. Yes. Then why are you acting like I tricked you? I'm not. I'm saying you called me a parasite while my payment was waiting to cover your rent. The kitchen became quiet. I heard Sophie say something from farther away. Mark answered her sharply. Give me a minute. When he came back, the anger had gone out of his voice. You have no idea what it's like having everybody think you can't take care of your own kid. I did not answer immediately. That was closer to the truth than anything else he had said. It did not explain the post. It did not tell me whether he had planned it, whether he had been angry that I was leaving, or whether he had wanted to make the family laugh for 30 seconds. But it explained why correcting the story felt more threatening to him than losing my help. I never told anyone you couldn't take care of Sophie, I said. You didn't have to. If they know you were paying the rent, what do you think they'll assume? That your hours were cut and you needed help for a while. Exactly. The word came out flat. I looked at the strip of painter's tape still stuck above the outlet across from me. I kept that private because you asked me to, I said. I did not agree to let you use my silence against me. I didn't lie. You called me a parasite. It was a joke. Then explain it. He did not. A burner clicked on at his end of the call. I have to make dinner, he said. Mark, what? I'm not paying October. He was quiet for another moment. Then he said, I hope you're comfortable with what that means. The call ended. I lowered the phone and opened our message thread. I searched for January. I was not looking for proof that Mark was a bad person. I wanted the exact terms of what I had promised. The messages were mixed in with grocery lists, pickup times, and reminders about Sophie's school events. The first relevant one was from January. If you're serious about staying here a few months, could you cover Linden Grove directly? Easier than transferring it to me. A few days later, please don't mention the hours thing to Mom. She'll turn it into a family emergency. Then, I told Sophie you're helping with the house while you look for a place. She doesn't need the details. There were messages confirming amounts and payment dates. Mark had sent a screenshot from the rental portal with Linden Grove's electronic payment information. Before several due dates, he had asked whether the transfer was scheduled. I scrolled forward to July. Can you still do September even if you move at the end of August?
School starts, and I need 1 month to get straight. My answer was beneath it. September is the last one. He had replied. I know. Thank you. The thread confirmed the agreement.
It did not explain the post. There was no message in which Mark admitted he was building a story for the family. Nothing said he planned to call me a parasite so nobody would suspect he needed money. I had proof of what I paid and what he requested. His motive remained his. I opened the bank transaction for September. The record showed Linden Grove Property Management, the posted date, the amount, and the last 4 digits of my checking account. I took a screenshot, cropped out the balance, and covered the account digits. I left the company name, date, and amount visible. My first draft beneath Mark's post was several paragraphs long. It explained his reduced hours, our agreement, why I moved in, why I stayed, and why I let the September payment process. I read it once and deleted it. Too much of it belonged to Mark, some of it belonged to Sophie. The second version was shorter and angrier. I deleted that one too. The third version said, for clarity, the attached payment is the September rent for this house. It was paid from my account after I moved out on August 30. It is the final rent payment I will make. I added, I will not continue financial support under an agreement that requires me to stay silent while false statements are made publicly about me. I saved the draft, then I texted Mark, I am going to correct one fact on your post. I will not explain why you needed help or share our full payment history. You can remove the post or correct it yourself before I do. The message showed as delivered. He read it at 8:42 p.m. At 9:06, the typing dots appeared. They stayed for almost a minute and disappeared. No message came. I checked Facebook. The post was still there. I washed the plate, fork, and saucepan in my sink. When I finished, I checked once more. Nothing had changed. At 9:47, I unlocked the phone. I posted the response at 9:47 p.m. The screenshot appeared beneath it, small enough that anyone had to tap it to read the details. For the first 6 minutes, nothing happened. Then Aunt Carol reacted with a surprised face. Ben wrote, "Wait, this was for September," my mother called. I declined the call. She sent a message instead. "Please take this down before it gets worse." I answered, "The original post is still up." Her response came quickly. "Two wrongs do not make a right." That sounded like something she had been waiting to say since childhood. Aunt Carol commented beneath the post. "Mark, is this true?" Mark replied. "She lived here almost a year. She paid because she was part of the household." Ben responded, "But she moved out before September." Mark did not answer him. I had not intended to write anything more. I had spent 20 minutes trying to make the first response complete enough to stand alone. Then Mark added, "Some people keep receipts because they expect applause." I looked at the sentence until the letters seemed too dark against the screen. My hands were shaking. I did not feel calm or wise. I wanted to upload every payment I had made since January. I wanted to post the messages where he asked me not to tell Mom. I wanted the family to see the exact shape of his need and the exact shape of my restraint. I opened the photo folder where the screenshots were saved. There were 7 of them. I selected all 7. Then I stopped. Sophie's name appeared in 2 messages. Her school was mentioned in another. The details would prove more, but they would also turn her father's financial trouble into something she could never pull back from the family. I deselected the images. Instead, I wrote one reply. This payment was for the month after I moved out. It is the final one. Nothing about Mark's hours, nothing about his credit cards. Nothing about Sophie, Mark called immediately. I let it ring, he called again. I answered on the 3rd attempt. "Take it down," he said. His voice was low and controlled, which made it sound worse. "You first. You posted my rent information. I posted my payment. You put my landlord's name online. It's the property management company named on the payment you asked me to make. The address and account information are covered. You had no right. You tagged the family and called me a parasite. It was my house. It was your post." He breathed into the phone. In the background, a door closed. "Sophie saw it," he said. My stomach tightened. "She saw your post first. You don't know that." "No, I don't." That was true, and saying it took some of the force out of me. Mark continued. You made her think we're about to lose the house. I did not say that. She's not stupid, I know. You could have called me, I did. You could have handled it privately, I tried. You always think because you can show a number, you're right. I looked at the single screenshot under my comment. I'm right about who made that payment. He ended the call. At 10:23, the original post disappeared. The comments vanished with it, including my screenshot and response. Mark did not replace it with a correction. He did not message the family. He did not apologize. The deletion created its own confusion. Aunt Carol asked whether I had removed everything. Ben sent me a private message saying he had taken a screenshot before the post disappeared. I told him not to circulate it. My mother finally reached me by phone the next morning. I hope you're satisfied, she said. I'm not. Well, Mark is humiliated. I was standing in the laundry room of my apartment building, waiting for a dryer that had stopped with 12 minutes left on the display. He was humiliated before I said anything, I told her. That is why I kept it private. That doesn't make this better. No. She seemed unsettled by my agreement. Then why do it? Because private stopped meaning private when he used it to make me look dependent on him. My mother was quiet. Then she said, family should not keep score. The dryer started turning again without explanation. I wasn't keeping score, I said. I was paying rent. That afternoon, Sophie texted, why did you put Dad's money stuff online? I sat in my car outside the grocery store before answering. I posted one payment from my account because he said I had been living off him. She did not respond. I sent one more message. I'm sorry you got pulled into it. The message showed as read. For the first time since she had gotten her own phone, Sophie did not answer me at all.
October rent was due on a Tuesday. Mark began contacting me the Thursday before. His first message was practical. If you can't do the full amount, could you cover half?
I answered no. The next day, even $500 would buy time, I wrote. September was the final payment. On Saturday, he sent a photograph of Sophie's school calendar. Parent-teacher conferences were marked for the middle of the month. Changing schools now would be terrible for her. I did not answer until Sunday afternoon. I am willing to pay a school expense directly if Sophie needs something specific. I am not paying your rent. He called that humiliating. I understood why. Direct help meant he did not control the route of the money. It also meant I could help Sophie without restoring the arrangement that had required me to disappear from my own role. My mother called Sunday evening. $500, she said. That's all he's asking. He asked you to call me? He told me what was happening. What did he tell you? That you cut him off over Facebook. I closed my eyes. The same mechanism was still working, a smaller story built around the part that made him look least dependent. I stopped paying after the final month we agreed on. Whatever the agreement was, Sophie is still there. I know. You say that like it doesn't matter. It matters. Then help. I offered to pay for something she needs directly. My mother made a frustrated sound. You know how that will make Mark feel? Yes. The answer came out more sharply than I intended. We both stayed silent. I did know how it would make him feel. That was part of what made the decision difficult. He had not invented his shame. He had only turned it outward until it became my burden. I'm not discussing his rent again, I said. My mother hung up without saying goodbye. On Tuesday morning, I checked my bank account. There was no scheduled transfer to Linden Grove. The absence looked ordinary, a blank line under upcoming payments. My phone did not vibrate. No warning appeared. No one from the bank asked whether I was certain. At work, I approved customer credits, answered 3 emails about missing invoices, and ate lunch at my desk. The world did not mark the day as important. Mark sent one message at 2:14 p.m. I hoped this was worth it. I did not respond. I also did not know what happened between him and the property manager. I did not know whether he paid late, borrowed money, shifted another bill, or arranged something else. No one from Linden Grove contacted me because I was not on the lease and had no right to ask. A week later, Aunt Carol mentioned that Mark had picked up weekend work. My mother said he was moving some things around. Neither of them could tell me what that meant. He remained in the house. There was no eviction notice on the door, no public collapse, no photograph of boxes on the lawn. The consequence was quieter. For the first time in months, whatever solution existed had to be found without a payment from me arriving before the problem became visible. My own finances improved slowly. I scheduled the brake repair and split the charge across 2 pay periods. I bought a small dining table from a woman moving to Florida. One leg was shorter than the others, so I folded a piece of cardboard beneath it. Sophie answered me once during that month. I had asked whether she still needed the graphing calculator she mentioned before school started. Dad got one, she wrote. That was the whole message. At Thanksgiving, my mother asked whether I was coming to dinner. Mark would be there, she said, and she did not want another scene. I didn't make a scene at the last dinner, I reminded her. You know what I mean. I did. I said I would think about it. That hesitation did not cost me money, but it told me something about the new shape of the family. The post had been deleted. The payment had ended. Neither fact returned us to where we had been. By November, the apartment looked less temporary. I had a bed frame, 2 lamps, the second-hand table, and curtains that stopped an inch above the floor. The utility deposit was still on my credit card, but the balance was lower. The brakes had been repaired. I no longer had to turn up the radio when I slowed at a light. There were still boxes in the hall closet. Mark and I spoke only when something involved Sophie. Even then, the messages stayed brief. He answered questions about school dates and gifts, but nothing personal. I heard through my mother that he had accepted weekend shifts. Aunt Carol said he might look for a cheaper house when the lease ended. Neither of them knew much more than that. Mark remained in the house. He never asked me for rent again. He never apologized either. My mother admitted she had misunderstood the arrangement during a phone call about Thanksgiving. I suppose Mark let us think he was helping you more than he was, she said. It was not a full correction, but it was the closest she came. Aunt Carol still thought I should have handled everything privately. Other relatives seemed to settle wherever admitting they had been wrong required the least movement. No family agreement arrived. Sophie's 15th birthday was in December. I sent her the sketchbook set she had shown me before the move. I ordered it directly to the house and wrote, "Happy birthday." I hope chemistry got less terrible. The delivery confirmation arrived 2 days later. That evening, she texted, "Thank you for the sketchbook." I answered, "You're welcome." Nothing followed. It was more than the silence we had been living with and less than I wanted. I left it alone. Near the end of the year, I opened my banking app to check whether the electric bill had cleared. Under scheduled payments were 3 ordinary items: car insurance, internet service, and the minimum payment on the credit card. Linden Grove Property Management was no longer there. For months, its name had appeared before every due date. I had grown used to checking it along with my own bills, as if Mark's rent were another service attached to my account. The last $1,860 had not come back. It had paid for September at his house while I slept on the floor here. The credit card balance and the delayed brake repair were part of what keeping that promise had cost. The Facebook post was gone too, but deleting it had not returned the family to what it had been before. Some relatives changed their understanding. Some only decided the situation was complicated. A few still seemed more bothered that I had answered publicly than that Mark had accused me publicly. I never learned exactly why he posted it. My answer changed depending on the day. Sometimes I thought he wanted to punish me for leaving. Sometimes I thought he had been embarrassed and careless, then too proud to correct himself. I stopped expecting one explanation to account for everything he had done. I closed the banking app and placed the phone on the uneven table. A minute later, it buzzed. For a moment, I thought it might be Sophie. It was the electric company confirming my payment. I read the notice, filed it with the others, and turned off the lamp. The apartment was quiet after that. Not peaceful, exactly, just mine.